This is me, moments before battling the champion without catching a singular Pokemon. But how did I get here? Which Pokemon did I use? And how did I get them? Let's go back to the very beginning. We started out our journey by meeting up with our rivals, getting a nickname, Trevor wants to call me Big D, and picking our starter. I ended up going with Chespin, which I called Prickles. There's options for both a fire and water type later down the line, which I was really excited to try out, so there'd be no point in choosing Fennekin or Froakie here. After crushing Shauna's dreams in our debut battle, I had a sudden realization. How does a pure grass type like Chespin take out two bug types on its own? Luckily, when Chespin gets to level 8 it learns Rollout. This set us up for the gym perfectly, so as soon as I could I challenged Viola. After getting hit by a bubble and a quick attack, 2 rollouts were enough to deal with the Sasket, and one final rollout finished off the Vivian, earning my first gym badge. Although this gym was pretty trivial thanks to rollout, our next few would not be so easy. Now we had the first gym under our belt, after a nice walk through the countryside and a fun discovery. I don't know who's allowed them to put sword stance maybe an hour into the game, but you know what, I'll come back for that. It was time to meet Professor Sycamore, and after a Yappuccino he asked us to battle. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, he got absolutely rolled. After beating him, he very kindly offered us one of the Kanto starters. I ended up going with Charmander, as I'd never used its Mega Y before, which I called the very original name of Flames. Don't get me wrong, I knew Mega Charizard Y was super strong, but little did I know how important it would be for the late game, especially against Diantha. Speaking of Diantha actually, I was going for a quick coffee break at this place Serena invited me to, and she just happened to be there with Lysander. After that weird stroke of luck, Tiana wanted us to meet up on the next route, so after quickly buying Sword Stance I headed in that direction, and met a shady looking fellow along the way. I'm sorry, Mr. Bonding Right, but you are a bit dodgy. Mr. Bonding. It's not bonding time! No! Following that disturbing encounter, Chespin evolved into Quilladin, and then we met up with Tiano, where Prickles proceeded to curb stomp his crab into next week. After clearing out the rest of the route, and almost losing to a random Oddish, oh, this is so close. Oh, I don't like it. I finally arrived in Camphria Town. This is the point of the game where everything feels like a massive side quest, so we'll quickly speedrun this part. There was a fat-ass Snorlax blocking the path to the next area, so we had to go get a flute from the palace nearby. The rich guy lost his dog, and although it'd probably be better off going back to the wild, we helped find his dog, and got the flute in return. With the flute going back to its rightful owner, he woke up the Snorlax, finally allowing us to go to Amberette Town. I actually ended up KOing the Snorlax, and this made Flames evolve into Charmeleon and learn Dragon Rage. After meeting up with Serena again, she mentioned there was a really cool cave nearby, so I went to check it out. When I got there, we had our first encounter with Team Schmer, and after blitzing through about 20 of their grunts, we rescued this random guy at the back of the cave. He was actually completely fine, and after we explained what happened, he was nice enough to give us a choice between 2 fossils, and I ended up going with the Jaw fossil. As the fossil was a gift, it's completely fair game, so after quickly returning to the fossil lab and restoring it into a Tyrant, I called it Chompers. With our third Pokemon secured, it was finally time to challenge the second gym. Grant is pretty infamously the most difficult gym leader in the X and Y games. His Amora is a massive problem, as it has a super effective move for our entire team, and on top of that, his Tyrant loves to spam Rock Tombs, constantly lowering our speed, so let's see how it goes. I led with Tyrant and went for a Charm, only to get absolutely obliterated by a takedown thanks to its ability Refrigerate. Before you ask,
Oh, why didn't you switch?
I thought out speed, okay, leave me alone. Knowing it was my only option, I sent out Flames and told it to use Dragon Rage, and in return I got paralyzed. After losing a third of our health with a takedown, Charmeleon landed the second Dragon Rage, KOing the Amora. Brand sent out his Tyrant and obliterated Flames with a Rock Tomb, taking us down to a 1v1. Prickles set up Leech Seed after taking a third from a Rock Tomb, and then I realized I was doomed. Not only did my Vine Whips do absolutely no damage, but the following turn literally couldn't have been worse. Not only did I miss my rollout, then his Tyrant proceeded to crit me down to 4 HP and flinch me, so after another bite we lost the battle. I should also mention I've added some rules just to make this challenge a little bit harder. I'm not allowing myself to use items in battle, except held items of course. I have to play on set mode, and I also can't overlevel past the next gym leader's ace, which is why I mentioned earlier that the next few gyms would not come so easy. With that all said, I revamped my strategy and went in for round 2. I led with Charmeleon and KO'd the Amora in the exact same fashion as last time. As Flames is paralysed and never survives a Rock Tomb from Grant's Tyrant, I sacrificed him to safely bring in Chompers. Chompers then became a Rizzlord for a couple of times, charming the tyrant until he went down. This allows Prickles to safely dance with his swords, and 2 Vine Whips later this battle is over, granting us our second gym badge. If you thought this gym battle was rough, just wait until you see the next one. After a quick trip through Reflection Cave, we ended up in Shalor City where we met up with Tierno. He mentioned something about going to the Tower of Mastery. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really paying attention because he does waffle on a bit, but turns out the entire gang was there. We spoke to this old fella about Mega Evolution, and he just happened to have a spare keystone and mentioned that one of us could have it. Alright, lads, how are we figuring this one out? Battling isn't really my thing, no thanks.
I agree with Tiano, although I will say
I want to complete the Pokédex first. You guys are so boring, oh my god. So after they made excuses, me and Serena decided to battle for it. And here's what I thought would happen. I'm going to Leech Seed and then Sword Stance and just sweep her because I can't be bothered. Yeah, that's not how it went at all. I immediately got crit from her Meowstic Psybeam, and although that happened, I still tried to do the same strategy like an idiot. I got really greedy with setting up and somehow killed a Meowstic with 1 HP left. So of course, as soon as she sent out her Absol, Prickles went down. Chompers was up next and traded a bite from her Absol for a Rock Tomb. For some reason I went for a Charm next, only to get crit by a Slash, bringing me down to 21 HP. Then 2 Rock Tombs later, the Absol went down. Looking back, I don't know why I didn't just use Rock Tomb 3 times in a row, but I'll give myself an A for effort. Serena sent out her Breaksun and took out Chompers immediately with a Psybeam, so it was down to a 1v1 fire type starter showdown. And it was an absolute breeze for Flames. 2 Dragon Rages and an Ember took out her Breaksun, winning us the battle and most importantly, the Keystone. Apparently the Keystone wasn't quite ready for use yet, so in the meantime I challenged Karina. Well, first I had to go through the gym trainers, and even they were hard for us. Well, rip. If I'm losing to the gym trainers, I'm so done for Karina. Oh no. I'm at +6 attack. I should outspeed and KO this. It still didn't KO? After just about getting through those, it was now time for us to battle Karina. Considering I have no super effective damage for any of her team, whilst on the flip side her ace has it for 2 of my team members, this was going to be very tough. Here's how it went. I led with Flames and went for a Protect, saving unnecessary damage from the Mienfu's incoming Fake Out. I took out Mienfu with 2 Dragon Rages, taking a power up punch for about a quarter of my health in between the attacks. This caused me to level up and learn Flame Burst. Karina sends out her Machoke and goes for a Rock Tomb, and to prevent Flames getting body bagged, I swap into Prickles. After using Leech Seed, I started stalling out the Machoke by swapping between Protect one turn and Need Alarm the next. Eventually I was forced to swap into Flames as the Machoke used Leer about 12 times, but I still continued the same strategy. After 2 Hyper Potions, it finally gets into a range where Flame Burst will kill and the Machoke goes down. Of course not the most fun strategy, but it got the job done. With all my Pokemon alive, it was time for the Devilish Hawlucha. Turn 1 I went for a Flame Burst, while Karina sets up with a Hone Claws. This is terrifying because it removes that 5% chance for Flying Press to miss and also raises its attack by 1 stage. As you can imagine, Charmeleon then goes down to a Flying Press the next turn. Chompers comes out next, and after taking big damage from a Flying Press, it gets off a Charm. What happened next genuinely shocked me, as I survived a Flying Press on 1 HP. Considering the first did way over half my HP, I thought there was no way in God's green earth I was surviving the next one. So not expecting to survive, I clicked a random move, and the Rock Tomb did a decent chunk of damage, as well as lowering her Hawlucha's speed by 1 stage. Chompers of course went down the next turn, but he went down a hero, that's for sure. It was all up to Prickles. He started out really shaky as he missed the first Leech Seed, and despite landing the second, we were still in a terrible spot. After protecting for some Leech Seed recovery, I thought my only chance to win this battle was to double protect, so I went for it. It failed. But Prickles survived the legend on 4 HP! And the Hawlucha of course fainted due to the Leech Seed at the end of the turn. That was way too close for comfort, but hey, I'll happily take that 3rd gym badge. So now we finally beat the gym leader, we can do something really exciting and battle her again. This was our introductory battle to Mega Evolution, and one of her Lucario volunteered to help me out by battling with me. And after I crushed her with her own Pokemon, the Lucario was so embarrassed that Karina was its trainer that it ditched her on the spot and came along with me instead. And I called it Anubis. With our 4th companion, my spirits were high, and they were just about to get even higher. Not only did Serena give us the HM for Surf, but after speaking to this random guy, he said this.
Hi, this Lapras wants to travel the world, but I couldn't possibly grant that wish. Wanna do it for me?
So I of course happily agreed to the gift, obtained Lapras, and called it Travis. Why call it Travis, you ask? I eventually arrived in Coumarine City, and Serena sent me a holoclip challenging me to a battle in front of the next gym. So one quick catch up with Professor Sycamore and Diantha later, I got the HM for flight and headed on over there to battle Serena. Serena started out by using Fake Out and then followed with Psybeam with her Meowstic, whereas Travis got flinched and then set up the rain. After trading some moves for a bit, her Meowstic eventually went down and she sent out her Absol. It bit me for about half of my current health whilst I went for a Surf that took it into the low red, meaning whoever got the next hit would get the KO. Well, that would be the case if Serena wasn't an absolute idiot, and instead of guaranteeing the KO, she told her Absol to use Quick Attack, which did nothing. So of course after another Surf, I took out her Absol, leveled up, and learned Ice Beam. She was down to her final Pokemon. Braixen came out and went for a Fire Spin, and missed. What a dumb stupid idiot! Lapras just went shy of the KO with Surf, unfortunately going down to the next Fire Spin. If the rain had stuck around for just one more turn, Travis could have completed the sweep, but what a first impression he's made. Thinking it would just be a simple KO, I sent out Chompers and went for a Rock Tomb, only for the worst case scenario. Braixen outsped, landed a Psybeam for over half my health, confused me, and I missed my Rock Tomb. To make matters even worse, I tried to protect the next turn, only to hit myself in confusion and was finished off by the Psybeam later that turn. Flames quickly KO'd the Braixen with Dragon Rage and won us the battle, but that could have got embarrassing very quickly. With Serena in the bin, it was time to challenge the 4th gym leader, Ramos. If you thought Travis shined in that last battle, you aren't ready for this one. After eating up an Acrobatics for breakfast, a recently learned Ice Beam was enough to send his Jumpluff and Weeping Bell into the Shadow Realm. The Go-Get was definitely more of a challenge. It survived the first Ice Beam easily and even brought us down to 4 HP with a Grass Knot. But because we're faster, we landed the final Ice Beam to easily earn our 4th gym badge. Just as I exited the gym, I heard some tomfoolery was going on in the power plant nearby, and you'll never guess who the cause of this was. Believe it or not, it wasn't actually Shauna, it was Team Schmer of course, and after defeating the member by the door, he dropped his pass, so I yoinked it and headed into the power plant. I'm not going to bore you with the details of this because it was a complete pushover. Even the admin and scientists had 1 Pokemon each, so we dealt with those easily. Although 2 epic things did happen in the meantime. Chompers learnt Crunch, and Flames evolved into Charizard, which was an incredible upgrade, that's for sure. And now the power outage in Lumiose was resolved, it was time to head back there and challenge Clement for our 5th gym badge. At least, so I thought anyway. Turns out I missed one whole cutscene by flying to Lumiose instead of walking there. Whoopsies. Now we'd gone the way we were actually supposed to. It was time to go for that 5th gym badge, and I did actually have half a plan this time. I'm gonna let you in on a little spoiler here. My plan is to just set up Sword Stance and sweep his entire team. Yeah, I did only say half a plan after all. Anyway, turn 1, I Mega Evolved Anubis and set up my first Sword Stance, whilst his Emolga Volt switched out, bringing in his Magneton. Now you see, what a smart person would have done here is go for the quad effective multi-hit move Bone Rush, but instead my dumbass went for Power Up Punch. The Magneton lived due to its ability Sturdy and fired off a Thunderbolt, sealing Anubis's fate. I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what I was doing here, but I sent out Chompers and went for a Rock Tomb, where Clement Hyper Potioned and healed his Magneton back up to full HP. The following turn I went for a Dragon Tail, hoping to bring in the Emolga so I could Rock Tomb it, but the Magneton went for a Mirror Shot, and missed. What an absolute clown! So I landed the Dragon Tail, and typically the Heliolisk came in. We traded hits, with Chompers going for a Crunch whilst his Heliolisk went for a Thunderbolt. I just didn't do enough damage where he comfortably did over half. So after the second Thunderbolt, Chompers went down and we sent in Prickles. We set up Leech Seed, only to KO it a turn later thanks to the recently learned Seed Bomb, so we sent in his Emolga. Knowing a super effective Aerial Ace was first on the menu for Prickles, I switched into Travis to avoid getting body bagged and tanked it decently well. It Volt switched out into the Magneton and it took a crit Ice Beam into the yellow. For the second time this battle, I have no idea what I was trying to do here, but I went for a Perish Song instead of attacking, and in turn got KO'd by a Thunderbolt. Flames came out next, and looking back this was really stupid, but for some reason I was worried this Magneton was going to outspeed, despite the fact Charizard's base speed is 30 higher than Magneton's. I don't know what I was smoking during this battle, but a Flame Burst easily finished off the Magneton, bringing it down to a 2v1. Now if the AI had more than a singular IQ point, it'd just defeat me with 2 Volt switches, but its first attack actually ended up being Aerial Ace, whilst I went for Flame Burst, taking it into the yellow. It did go for Volt Switch the next turn, but Flames took that like a champ, allowing our last Flame Burst to beat the Emolga and win us our 5th gym badge. This could have, and should have, probably gone a lot smoother than it actually did, but hey, at least it only took one attempt unlike the earlier gyms. After we beat Clement, he kindly gave us the TM for Thunderbolt, which I taught to Travis. This is the only electric coverage we're going to have in the the entire run, so it's kind of funny how it's on my water type. On the way to challenge the next gym, we had yet another battle with Serena, but she was easier than ever. After the usual fake out, Chompers did some good damage with a crunch, and on the next turn I swapped into Anubis and took a psychic. We then mega evolved and went for a power up punch, only for the Meowstic to survive on 1 HP. She fired off her final psychic, and we also ended up surviving with 1 HP, and because we outspeed, we took it out the next time with a second power up punch. For once, her starter was the easiest to deal with, as a few Bone Rush hits knocked it out. Anubis then fell to the Absol's quick attack, so Prickles came out, and a few C-bombs later the battle was done. This also led to Prickles evolving into Chestnut, which is kinda typical that it gains the fighting type just before the Fairy Gym, but hey, at least everyone's evolved except Chompers now, and even that isn't too far away. We walked through Swampy Route 14, visited some dodgy geezer in a haunted house, and challenged Valerie despite being a little underleveled. If I'm being honest, I wasn't really worried about the damage output during this battle, because her only real threat is Sylveon with Dazzling Gleam. Her Mr. Mime could be a bit annoying if it's on the field for too long because of Light Screen and Reflect, but we'll have to see how it goes. I led with Anubis, Mega Evolved and went for a Bone Rush, and it typically only hit twice, so the Marwell only lost about half of its HP. After setting up for a couple of turns, I tried a Bone Rush again, and after 2 hits the Marwell went down, bringing in her Mr. Mime. And because we raised our attack stats so much, Mr. Mime stood no chance and suffered the same fate. Was it finally possible for Anubis to complete a sweep? I clicked Bone Rush and it only hit twice. Sylveon then fired back a Dazzling Gleam and KO'd Lucario. There Anubis, you'll get him next time. As Flames resisted the incoming Dazzling Gleams, he was up next, and after a mix of Flame Bursts and Flies, he took down the Sylveon and we had won ourselves our 6th gym badge. Just after leaving the gym, Team Schmer was spotted at the Pokeball factory, and as much as I hated the idea of going, for obvious reasons, we went to check it out. After beating up half the organization, Chompers finally evolved into the beast that is Tyrantrum, and this was humongous for the Olympia battle, and you'll see why in just a little bit. Similar to the cave incident earlier on, we ended up saving some random dude. He was super thankful for the rescue, and because he was the owner, he decided to treat us to a gift. Why would I ever want a Master Ball? At least I can sell that for money. I just said I didn't want it, you fool! I rushed to the Pokemon Center to sell the disgusting item, but it wouldn't let me for some reason. As I had no real choice in the matter, I decided to keep it in the end. It was a gift after all. Honestly, you never know. An evil organization could randomly threaten to end the world by using the power of a legendary Pokemon, which would force me to catch it and save the planet. It would be a crazy coincidence, but you never know. On the way to the next gym, I passed through Dendermill Town, and after briefly meeting with Trevor, he pulled a Serena and said there was a really cool cave nearby. Turns out he meant literally cool, not interesting. However, according to this Mamoswine, something dodgy was going on in the cave. How do I know this, you may ask? Good question. Turns out Team Schmer were just bullying an innocent Abomasnow, so I taught the admin a lesson real quick, Anubis learned Aura Sphere, and I checked to see if everything was okay. Is everything okay, buddy? No. I respect that. Now everything was all sorted in the cave, and both the Mamoswine and Abomasnow were at rest. Wait, hang on, that sounds like they died. The alive Mamoswine offered us a lift through the snow, and once that was done, we got a holoclip from Serena challenging me to a battle in front of the Andestar gym, which I of course accepted. A short stroll later, a woman forced some balls onto me, and we went into a trivial battle with Serena. 2 of Flames' Flame Burst took out her Meowstic, Prickles dealt with the Jolteon, then Chompers beat the Delphox with 2 Rock Tombs, and beat the Absol with a Rock Tomb and Dragon Claw combo, winning us the battle. Serena, you really need to step up your game, because you haven't won a single battle this far. Like, you are hooning up the gap, I'm sorry. With Serena put back in the bin, it was now time to battle Olympia, and oh boyo, this did not go to plan. I'm not sure if you can tell by this point, but I didn't actually do much research on the major battles of this game, just to keep them a bit more interesting, and this definitely came back to bite me here. Her Sigilyph immediately set up Reflect, chopping all of my physical damage in half right off the bat, and in return I used the Rock Tomb so I could outspeed the next turn. This worked pretty well, as on the next turn I went for a Crunch, taking it into the red, while she used Psychic, annoyingly lowering my special defense in the process. I knew she would heal this turn, so I went for another Rock Tomb to get some chip damage, and in typical fashion I missed, so she got a free heal. Because of the special defense drop, I knew Chompers would would likely die to the next attack, so I swapped into Travis, and after tanking a Psychic pretty well, I went for an Ice Beam, which dealt about 80% of its health. Her Sigilif just didn't attack after that, setting up both screens and using a Hyper Potion in between before going down. Olympia sent out her Slowking next, and because of the light screen she set up, a Thunderbolt did no damage, and yawned in return, so I had to switch out again. Prickles replaced Travis and took a Power Gem, and after 2 Seed Bombs, the Slowking went down. However, I was yawned after the first Seed Bomb, so I ended up taking a nap here. She was down to just her Meowstic, which led with a Fake Out. I woke up the turn after and used Spiky Shield, protecting us from the incoming Psychic. At least, that's what I thought would happen, but instead she went for a Calm Mind, which was awful, and after landing a Seed Bomb for about 40% of her health, Prickles fainted to a Psychic. She then proceeded to one-shot Chompers and two-shot Travis, so it was up to Anubis and Flames, but I had a very simple plan here. Risky, but simple. Anubis came out, and I knew I'd only be able to use one move before going down, so instead of attacking, I decided to risk the 85% accuracy Metal Sound, and thankfully it landed. Anubis went down the next turn as expected, but this safely brought in Flames. For the next part of my master plan, I Mega Evolved and clicked Flame Burst. I basically had to pray that I could either live 2 Psychics or one-shot the Meowstic this turn, and believe it or not, both happened, allowing us to claim our 7th gym badge. This strategy is quite risky, but when you pull it off it works like a charm, so it's not the last time you'll see this combination be used. Following our victory, Lysander does possibly the most stupid thing a man can do, by revealing his master plan to end the world to the public. You never know, an evil organization could randomly threaten to end the world. I felt a weird sense of deja vu in that moment. It's probably nothing, let's just get this over with. To start our mission of saving the world, we went to Lysander's cafe, as that seemed like a pretty logical place to start, and turns out the workers were secretly goons in disguise, so I beat them all to a pulp, well, their Pokemon, and then entered the secret lab behind the bookshelf. Turns out he was standing at the other side of the entrance, and he immediately challenged me to a battle. As this is the first of 3 battles with him, I'll make this short and sweet. Flames took out the Mienfoo with a Fly, Lapras dealt with the Gyarados with 2 Thunderbolts, and after a couple of Rock Tombs, Chompers buried his Pyro and Murkrow, finishing off the battle. Flames also finally learnt Flamethrower during this battle, so that's pretty cool. After clearing out every Team Schmer member on the first floor, Chompers learned Earthquake, and we got the elevator key so we could descend further into the lair. Eventually I got to meet Team Schmer's head scientist Zarosic. I quickly crushed him in battle, but then I was forced into making a decision. He gave me the option between a red and blue button, one being 100% safe, and the other activating the ultimate weapon. And here was my thought process at the time. I think this is some reverse psychology, because you'd think clicking the blue button would mean peace, calm, water, sea, beaches, but they are psychos, so we're gonna go with the orange/red button. Yeah, push the red button. This thought process was pointless, he was going to activate it anyway. So the flower bloomed over Geosenge Town, so I was forced to head on over there. I'm not sure why the 10-year-old has to do all this, by the way. The Elite Four and Champion could easily flatline Lysander if they cared enough, but hey, someone's got to do it. As I got to Geosenge Town, we met with Serena and headed into the secret base, where I battled a slightly stronger Lysander. But similar to last time, Flames KO'd the Naomi and Shao with Fly. Travis just about beat the Gyarados, surviving on 2 HP from a critical hit Outrage. Prickles dealt with the Pyroar this time. I thought it'd be funny, okay, leave me alone. And Chompers won us the battle with a final Rock Tomb against his Honchkrow. You know what, Lysander? You don't need to end the world, you need therapy. Extensive therapy. Oh my god. Despite beating him, Lysander taunted us saying,
"It's too late."
as if we were gonna give up, but after clearing out all of his goons, we realized what he meant. We were face to face with the being of destruction, Yveltal, and after its awakening, it forced us into battle. Attempting to calm it down a little bit, I used 2 Ice Beams with Travis to take it out, but it wouldn't flee like I thought it would. It looked at me intently, stared into my soul as if it was asking for help, and then I remembered what I had said once before. Honestly, you never know. An evil organization could randomly threaten to end the world by using the power of a legendary Pokemon, which would force me to catch it and save the planet. I was in shock, I didn't really know what to do. Was this really happening? If it wouldn't flee and I couldn't defeat it, that would only leave me one option. But it was against everything I had stood up for up to this point. Could I even do it? But then, it hit me. I just said I didn't want it, you fool! There's a reason it was forced upon me. There's a reason it wouldn't let me sell it. It was all for this very moment. So as much as I didn't want to, I had made a decision. If it saves the world, then this is what I have to do. Even if I don't want to. I threw the Master Ball and caught the Yveltal. And just as I was going to box it for good, Lysander appeared and challenged me to a final battle. And the absolute cheek of this Yveltal, it had forced its way to the front of my party to get revenge upon Lysander. I disagreed and just let it die. In typical fashion, the Mienshao went down to a single fly, but had dealt way more damage due to it setting up a sword stance before KOing Yveltal. Pyro was out next, and instead of letting flames go down here, I switched into Travis and took about a quarter of my health from a Dark Pulse. Considering I took that hit pretty well, I thought setting up the rain would be smart. It wasn't. Because the Pyro outspeeds Travis, it landed a Fire Blast before I set up the rain, so it did huge damage for free. It went for a Hyper Voice the following turn and finished off Travis. I honestly don't know why I didn't just surf, but oh well. Chompers came out next, and after a combo of Earthquake and Crunch, the Pyro went down. I definitely didn't misclick the Crunch, I promise. Honchkrow was next on the chopping block, and proceeded to get one-shot by a Rock Tomb. Lysander was now down to his ultimate Pokemon, Mega Gyarados, and this thing is terrifying as it only has attacking moves. Chompers surprisingly outsped and landed a Rock Tomb, but soon got cleaned up by an Earthquake. As a safety measure, I Mega Evolved Flames to set up the Sun, and my reasoning couldn't have been any better in the moment. Just in case this thing has some form of Psycho Water type move. Yeah, that's all I really had to say, but it's a pretty good reason, right? And after landing a Fly for some chip damage, Flames fell to an Aqua Tail and brought it down to a 2 versus 1. Either option probably would get the job done here, but I decided on Prickles to hopefully land the final blow. We outsped, landed the Seed Bomb, and KO'd the Gyarados. I won the battle and saved the world, but at what cost? Yveltal was caught after all. As catching it is literally forced upon you and you can't progress without it, this is the only exception I've made and I released it right after, so we can continue without any benefits. Now that Palaver was finally over, we could continue on our quest, and just after flying to Anastar City, we received a holoclip from Professor Sycamore. He wanted a quick catch up in Koraway Town, and on the way there, I accidentally found something I'd never seen before. There's an NPC in a house on Route 18 that has a special power to reverse how type matchups work, and this is called an inverse battle. As I mentioned before, I'd literally never seen this gimmick before, and despite it sounding complicated, it was actually pretty simple. Wait. It's HP, but I didn't even go down, it just went boop. Once that was done, we made it to Koraway Town and caught up with the Professor, where he basically just thanked us for saving the world and challenged us to a second battle, which I completely forgotten about. I genuinely thought you only battled him once when you collected your original Kanto starter back in Lumiose, so we ended up battling his 3 fully evolved Kanto starters. I did try to sweep with Flames and breeze through his Venusaur pretty easily, but unfortunately his Blastoise got a critical hit Aqua Tail, ruining the fun. He really had to dampen the mood, huh? Travis then finished off the Blastoise and KO'd the Charizard to win the battle. Looking back, I probably could have swept his entire team with Lapras, but oh well. Continuing towards the 8th and final gym, we headed on to Route 19 and caught up with Shauna on the bridge, and if I had to listen to her waffle for too long, I might just jump. But thankfully, she only challenged us to a battle, so I lived another day. She was a complete pushover. Chompers dealt with the Delcatty and Goodra, and Lucario ended up throwing an Aura Sphere that would kill multiple Greninja, and this was only the start. Turns out this was the first of back-to-back battles, and our next battle was against Tierno, and his team was a bit stronger than Shauna's. This isn't exactly a news flash, but he is an idiot. Despite staring down my humongous rock dinosaur, he told his Talonflame to use Sword Stance, so his Talonflame got sent to the Shadow Realm, and he replaced it with his Roserade. Following a quick switch into Travis, an Ice Beam beat the Roserade easily, and the Thunderbolt easily destroyed his Crawdon, finishing the second of 3 battles. And our last battle was against Trevor. He started out with a Raichu, which immediately got knocked out by an Earthquake, just after paralyzing Chompers with a Thunderbolt. Flames burnt the floor just to a crisp with 2 flamethrowers, and then Trevor sent out his Aerodactyl. This dumbass dinosaur was incredibly awkward to deal with because of Skydrop. Skydrop is a move that takes both the user and the target into the air for 1 turn and drops them the next, but you can't attack whilst you're in the air. And because of Aerodactyl's insanely high speed stat, it was looking a little grim, I must admit, but thankfully Anubis fired off one final Aura Sphere, ending the trilogy of rival battles. After beating them all, we got the HM for Waterfall, and said goodbye to them for the final time this playthrough. And can I just say, finally! Oh my god, they yap so much, I'm glad to be rid of them. They were nice people though. Following that, we finally ended up in Snowbell City, ready to challenge the final gym, and... are you serious? So after trekking through this dodgy forest, we finally found the gym leader Wulfric, and bro just says, sorry, I'll go back now.
Then he waddled away.
At least he didn't make a fuss about it. With Wulfric back at the gym, it was now time to challenge the ultimate final gym leader. And because it's the last gym, I'm going to make things a little more challenging. You're probably wondering, how am I going to beat this gym? Am I going to Mega Evolve Lucario? Am I going to Mega Evolve Charizard? No, this time I'm not going to Mega Evolve and try and sweep with Chestnut. I'm not going to lie, I thought it'd be so funny if I could just sweep the Ice-type gym leader with Prickles by spamming Power Up Punch. But after a combo of Ice Beam and Ice Shard, he didn't even make it through one Pokemon, but managed to get at least one attack off before going down. Chompers came out the following turn and took out the Abomasnow with a Rock Tomb, and Wulfric sent out his Cryogonal next, and used a move I was not happy to see. Confused. Not again, I thought I was free of this! Don't hit yourself. Yay! Yeah! Just after giving his Cryogonal an early funeral, his last Pokemon was an Avalugg, an extremely bulky pure ice type that I was quite scared of, but little did I realise how much of that bulk was physical. As its special defense stat was so much lower, Travis was the obvious choice. I definitely knew this during the battle, and I'm not bringing it up in the script to make myself sound smarter than I actually am. And although it hit hard with Crunch thanks to setting up with Curse, at this point it was too late. A few Thunderbolts sealed the Avalugg's fate and gained us our 8th and final gym badge. It was certainly a long time coming, but with all 8 gym badges, that meant one final challenge, the Elite Four and Champion. It was finally time. I entered Victory Road and started my hike up the Pokemon League. However, what's a Victory Road hike without the final rival battle? So me and Serena shared the stage one last time. Just a heads up, you might see some new moves that I haven't provided any context for, and I'll explain how I get those just before we enter the Pokemon League. I thought I'd quickly mention this before anyone gets confused. Anyway, on with the battle. After a fake out from her Meowstic, one Crunch from Chompers was enough to take it out, and she sent in Altaria. I went for a Rock Slide, and typically Chompers missed it, allowing the Altaria to fire back a super effective Dragon Pulse, slaying Chompers. Anubis came out next, and over the next few turns, Mega Evolved and fired off some Dragon Pulses, eventually KOing the Altaria. Serena then sent out her Delphox, so I was forced to switch, and thinking it'd be fine, I sent in Travis. Turns out her first Flamethrower did a good chunk of damage and burnt me, and this was followed by a Psychic that took Travis down to 22 HP after the burn damage. He did land a Surf, taking the Fox to just under half, but it wasn't enough, and Travis went down the following turn. Flames was up next, and after tanking a Psychic, it took out her Delphox with a crucial crit Air Slash, forcing her to bring out her Jolteon. Jolteon obviously beat Flames with a Discharge, and it was now down to a 2 vs 2. It was Prickles' time to shine, and by shine I mean get paralyzed first turn, but at least he landed the first Seed Bomb. The second one took some time. I did get paralyzed back-to-back turns, but luckily the third time was a Charm, and the Seed Bomb took out the Jolteon. Her last Pokemon was Absol, essentially a dead cat walking at this point, but things didn't really go to plan.
Give me everything. Call an ambulance!
The Absol landed a Slash for pitiful damage, and then died to a regular Seed Bomb.
But not for me!
Listen, I'm not complaining or anything, I still won, but everything I thought would happen during that last attack just didn't. With Serena crushed for the final time, the Elite Four and Champion was all that was left. As I mentioned earlier, you might have noticed some moves during that battle that I hadn't mentioned before, and I basically decided it'd be better off explaining everything now instead of half of it before the battle and half of it afterwards. Here's the final rundown. Our starter Prickles with Seed Bomb, Power Up Punch, Spiky Shield, and Rock Slide, holding a black belt for that extra fighting type damage. I found the Rock Slide TM on top of a cliff in Kuraway Town. The second starter Flames with Flamethrower, Air Slash, Solar Beam, and Fly, holding a Charizardite Y for obvious reasons. Flames definitely got the biggest upgrade, finding the Solar Beam TM on Route 21 and landing Air Slash at the move reminder. Chompers with Rock Slide, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and Crunch, holding a King's Rock hoping for flinches. Anubis with Aura Sphere, Dragon Pulse, Metal Sound, and Calm Mind holding the Lucario Knight. Listen, I would have given him a steel type move, but Flash Cannon is post game, and there's no point teaching him a physical move when I have Carmine and Metal Sound. Also, I taught Dragon Pulse through the move reminder and got Carmine after defeating Olympia, and ultimately Travis with Surf, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt and Rain Dance, holding a Zap Plate not only because it's funny, but to boost Thunderbolt as well. With all of our Pokemon, movesets and items finalized, it was time for the ultimate challenge. As the X and Y games allow you to choose what order you take on the Elite Four, I decided to go with the water type specialist Seabold first. You'd think there'd be some genius strategy behind this idea. Nah mate, I spun a wheel. Our battle started by me leading with Prickles, where he led with Clawitzer, and on the first time we traded a Seed Bomb for a Dragon Pulse. As he was already in the low red, Seabold used a full restore, but it was useless. My next Seed Bomb took it back into the same range. To counter this, I used Power Up Punch, which didn't do much damage, but raised my attack stat by 1 stage. This allows me to guarantee the kill with another Seed Bomb. Starmie was up next, so I switched into Anubis and went for a Metal Sound, hoping my Dragon Pulse would one-shot it the next turn. Yeah, about that. It did about 66% of its health, and Starmie easily finished him off with a combo of Surf and Psychic. I sent out Flames, Mega Evolved, and used Solar Beam, and after taking about a third from a Surf, we picked up our second KO. Barbarical was the easiest to deal with by far, as a super effective Solar Beam easily beats it, and finally his Gyarados came out. This thing loves to set up a Dragon Dance and can so easily tear through teams with it, so I had to be careful. Knowing it would probably use it on the first turn, I used Solar Beam, which did about 40% of its health. Predicting it would see the KO with Waterfall, I switched into Travis, and my hypothesis was correct, allowing us to get a free switch thanks to its ability Water Absorb. Knowing I could tank at least one attack from his Gyarados, I went for a Thunderbolt, and after snacking on its Earthquake, Travis zapped Gyarados out of the air, defeating our first Elite Four member. Our next opponent was Wickstrom and his Steel types, but I wasn't too worried about this one. I led with Flames and Mega Evolved, instantly melting the Klefki, and he replaced it with Probopass. Knowing it had Sturdy and a Power Gem at the ready, I was forced to switch into Prickles, who ate that for breakfast. The next few turns consisted of me using Power Up Punch, it living on 1 HP due to Sturdy, and him healing up until he ran out of full restores. By the time I had beaten this rock with a nose, I was at +4 attack, ready to try and decimate anything that came up. Wickstrom sent out Aegislash next, and to see what he'd do, I went for a Spiky Shield. Turns out we had the same thought process, as he went to King Shield in return. In other words, we're both scaredy cats. Knowing he wouldn't double protect next turn, I went for a Seed Bomb, which did about a third of its health, and in return it fought back with Iron Head. However, him attacking here sealed his fate, as when Aegislash changes into its blade form, its defenses plummet in return for a huge attack boost. So on the next turn, Aegislash was slain, bringing out his final Pokemon Scizor. Attempting to complete the sweep, I went for a Seed Bomb, but unfortunately it was nowhere near enough, so Prickles went down the same turn to an Iron Head. Flames then returned to the battle, firing off a super effective Flamethrower and winning us our second Elite Four fight. It's kinda crazy how I beat an Elite Four member with just 2 Pokemon. Funny enough, he was easier than most of the gym leaders. Bro is scamming a living. The penultimate Elite Four member was Strasna, the Dragon type specialist. This sounds terrifying at first until you realize the true power of Mega Lucario. The first 2 turns of the battle I used Calm Mind, and then proceeded to outspeed and sweep her entire team with Dragon Pulse. Forget what I said about Wickstrom, she's the fraud, not him. And finally we have Malva, the last Elite Four member before the ultimate challenge that is Diantha. And don't worry, this wasn't as much of a slaughter as the Drasna battle was. My first Pokemon was Chompers, whilst hers was Pyroar. Turn 1 I of course went for a Rock Slide, while she went for a Noble Roar, lowering my attack stats. The Hyper Voice on the following turn didn't even leave a scratch, and the second Rock Slide finished off the Pyroar. She sent out her Torkoal next, and expecting her to try and set up the sun, it was Travis's time to dampen her mood, but instead it just went for a curse. After setting up the rain and a lucky Stone Edge miss, it was checkmate. 3 Surfs in the rain easily drowned the rest of her team, finishing off the Elite Four. It's kinda crazy how a simple strategy can be so effective even against the Kalos region's strongest trainers, but that would not be the same for Diantha. Diantha has a full team of 6 Pokemon, which is type diverse and full of threats, so it's nowhere near as simple to sweep, unlike some of the Elite Four members, and it started out terribly as I accidentally led with Chompers. What made matters worse is that she had led with Hawlucha, which forced me to switch into Flames to avoid a potential incoming high jump kick. After doing some research, turns out it actually doesn't have high jump kick, but either way I had to be safe. Instead she used sword stance, which terrified me, so I mega evolved and went for air slash. After getting hit by a neutral poison jab, we landed the air slash and one-shot her Hawlucha, taking out her first Pokemon. Her next Pokemon was an imposter of Chompers, and I had to teach it a lesson, so I swapped into Prickles whilst it went for head smash. It's a good job Flames won there, oh my god. We then traded a power up punch for a Dragon Claw. I was a bit worried that the next power up punch wouldn't do enough damage, so I used Spiky Shield to get an extra bit of chip damage before finishing off the imposter with a final power up punch. Aurora's was next on the chopping block, and of course went down to a singular power up punch, putting us in a brilliant position with +3 attack. However, her Goodra had other plans. A Fire Blast burnt Prickles to a crisp, landing her first win. As her next two Pokemon were weak to ice, Travis was the obvious choice, and after she miraculously landed a Focus Blast, we beat the Goodra with the next Ice Beam. Her penultimate Pokemon was Gourgeist, but that was no trouble as it went down to a singular Ice Beam. Diantha was down to her ace Gardevoir. We had 4 Pokemon left to take out just one of hers, but could we do it? She decimated Travis with a Thunderbolt, instantly eliminating one of our 4. I wasn't sure if one attack was enough, and even if I could land the attack, if it didn't KO, a Thunderbolt would almost definitely beat us. So with desperate times calling for desperate measures, I sent out Anubis and banked on landing the Metal Sound, and after surviving a Moonblast on 25 HP, it landed. Anubis had done all he could, and it was up to Flames. If he could not one-shot the Gardevoir, we'd have to beat the Elite Four all over again, which to be fair wouldn't be that bad, but that's not the point here. I told Flames to go for a Flamethrower, and this is what happened. Right, Flamethrower. It outspeeds me! Oh, it's the one! Please! Yes! Charizard, you legend! Oh my god! It was done. I beat Pokemon Y without catching a singular Pokemon. Now I beat Diantha in battle. Maybe I'll ask her out on a date.